Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Another Car Channel.
Three.
With me, Jason Andrews and Courtney Myers. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Hey, brother. How are you?
In honor of episode 3, I've put 3 raspberries
Nice.
in my bourbon today, so to celebrate the occasion. So just cheers to you guys, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
We're happy. We're happy you're here. I don't have anything in threes,
For 4, we'll be looking at you for something really impactful
Yes.
for episode 4.
I will bring four peaches to the party.
That's right.
No, cool.
Well-
Hey guys, I'm excited about this one. We're gonna hopefully have a little bit fresher, newer, more exciting content coming each episode, and I think this is going to be a good start because I know I have some fun things to talk about. We have another thing we have to talk about is kind of a buzz in the car community about 2 competing cars and timing dates and whatnot, and I'd like to hear some interesting things on that. And then Jason, you have some new wheels, so.
That's right. Yeah. Where do you guys want to start?
Well, I want to start by thanking everybody who has subscribed to the podcast so far. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers, which seems crazy to me.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. So thank you, everybody, for giving us a little bit of your time, and let's keep it rolling. So
Yeah.
that's first on the agenda for me.
Absolutely, totally agree. I thought I had no expectations about this. I'm like, hey, we're just 3 dudes going to get together and shoot the shit, and people are actually watching it, which is very, very strange to me. But yeah, that's awesome. So thank you.
Yeah.
So I think that the biggest news that broke out since episode 2 was the release of the Corvette ZR1. And I remember the day, like the morning after, our group chat going off, like, so what do we think? And, we've had about a week since the news, and obviously a lot of people have gotten their hands on it, and there's a lot of coverage. But for me, I think where I'd want to start is, I think the thing looks amazing. Great horsepower figures, great torque figures. And I think, do we think Ford might have fumbled the GTD now that Chevy has announced the ZR1?
I think this is a huge undercut, to the GTD. I think everyone who is excited about that Mustang have got to really rethink their priorities. And if they put an order for one, maybe consider heading the other direction. I just don't see a world where the Mustang outperforms this car in any way.
That's true.
I mean, my whole thing is whenever we used to think about horsepower, 1,000 horsepower was something you had to have a big drag slick on to even think about hooking, right? I mean, we've driven cars with 500 or 600 horsepower with the wrong tire, not connecting. So I can just see this as, my first thought was like, way too much. You always hear the thing, usable horsepower, right? But for it to be a stock car, that tells me they probably, the smart engineers at Chevrolet that know more about this than we ever will, probably have that thing dialed in with aero, suspension, height, downforce, etc.
Well, the car, from my understanding, the car is boost by gear. So I don't think you're making 1,000 horsepower in first gear. You're probably not making 1,000 horsepower in second gear. I could be wrong, but I heard some engineers talking about they are definitely managing the boost at the lower speeds, lower gear. So, this is a fourth gear, fifth gear dyno pull that's probably going to see these numbers, which is smart, which is incredibly smart. I mean,
because otherwise, I was just blabbing about something I don't know what I'm talking about. That wasn't going to be useful, right? So that's pretty cool, and that's a couple hundred over the GTD. I think the difference, and I'll shut up after this, but I think the difference with the GTD versus this is, with the GTD, it's the allocation process. It's the whole send us a video of the cars you own. And I don't know if Chevrolet is going to do that. And you guys probably might know better, but has Chevy ever done that with any of their Corvettes? The same way Ford has with the GT and now the GTD.
Well, I do know it was kind of hard for early people to get allocations for the Z06, and obviously they had to enter in that contract where they wouldn't flip the car or the warranty would be void, right? I don't know. I assume that there'll be way more ZR1s than GTDs.
Mm-hmm.
Because what did Ford say? I mean, they're not going to make that many of them, right?
To my knowledge, the GTD was supposed to be like something very low, like either 300 or 500 units or
Yeah.
something like that.
Mm,
I could be wrong. I'm looking that up, but
yeah, me too.
uh, so real quick on the boost, yes, GM has come out and said that is electronically controlled wastegate. So they're managing the turbo lag as well as a lot of the power delivery through the electronically controlled uh, wastegate. So that's one thing. Um, but they also like to think about, if you remember back in the mid early 2000s or mid 2000s when the Bugatti Veyron came out, and it was like, wow, a car with 1,000 horsepower out of the factory, right? It was like crazy. And now we have an American car that, oh yeah, it'll have 1,000 horsepower, no big deal. Mid-engine, truly supercar performance, which by all measures most people believed that the standard C8 did that. So I think Chevy, as Jason said, huge undercut to the Mustang GTD, because if you think about it, a few months ago, however long ago it was since the GTD got announced, everybody was like, "Oh my God, look at this, crazy thing by Ford, and they're bringing us a race car." And in the most American way, Chevy has really said, "Hold my beer," and I think that's quite impressive. I'm looking at both of the cars now, and you know, the crazy part to me is that Ford is advertising this as targeted max horsepower 800 plus. So they haven't even really given us a number, and this is on Ford's website. Versus Chevy's come out with like a flat figure, like 1,064. That's your number.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying 190 plus miles per hour. The engineers for the ZR1 came out, it's like, oh, it'll do over 212 effortlessly. So it feels to me like Ford is purposely leaving a lot to interpretation or speculation, or they just don't know. Versus Chevy's like, oh yeah, we've tested it all. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
You'll love it. So I don't know. I think anybody, as Courtney said, anybody who's put in an allocation to this, I would reconsider.
I will say, in defense slightly to Ford, I mean, they are doing some new things with the GTD, right? They're putting the transmission in the back, which is unique. It's going to have a perfect 50-50 weight distribution, which is probably going to be pretty great. And it seems like I'm seeing videos all the time of the GTD running the Nürburgring, and so, I mean, I haven't really seen the ZR1 in this outfit, this configuration on the ring. So I wonder if Ford, they're doing their little race series, right? What are they racing? GT3 or the
Yeah,
Mustang's racing that?
Yeah, they're doing IMSA and something with the GT4s, I think.
So I'm wondering if they might have some type of development or something from all the testing and racing that they've been doing that, maybe they can step up these numbers, or maybe the car is just going to absolutely perform. Like it's not going to be a slouch for sure.
Right. But yeah, and one thing though is like I would assume we're going to see a lot more ZR1s on a track than you will GTDs. Like how many people that are buying these 400 GTDs are going to actually take them to a track? So I don't know. Yeah, let's say it does sub 7 at the ring, right? Which is obviously like ungodly fast that none of us can even imagine. Even if the Corvette's faster or slower doesn't matter, nobody's going to be driving the GTD. At least I think. But again, there's a lot of guys who have, they put on their New Balances and drive their Z06s to Cars and Coffee, and that's as far as they go too. So, but also I think when you have a GTD, which is pretty much a new platform, right? It's hard to say that it's S650 because I think it's just different enough that there's not going to be like, even if you do track it, like parts, repairs, all this stuff with a GTD, it's not going to make sense for guys to track it. They're going to get a GT350 and rip the interior out and throw a big wing on it and go to the track, right? Or at least that's what I did. Yeah, I just think I think that really, comparison aside, I think it's two different cars for two different types of people.
100%. I think that Chevy's still banking on most of the people who buy the ZR1 are guys who, will go golfing and will do all these things, and maybe one still take to the track. Like there'll be a very low percentage of people who track that car.
Yeah. Well, I think either car actually. Nobody's going to track these things.
Yeah, which is shame. Which I think we've agreed we're gonna do a whole other episode on how we all got started when it came to racing our cars. But it having seen I saw a GTD. I believe there was one at the Rolex, if I remember correctly. I don't remember, but or at least it was one of the cars that they were actually racing, and I mean it looked phenomenal. But I keep looking at the ZR1, and I would, if I had to pick one, and again, price the Corvette wins, power the Corvette wins. I think looks the Corvette wins, practicality the Corvette wins. Like there's just a lot of W's on for the Corvette for the money.
As far as we know from like our limited experience with this sport, fastest like what did like even at the firm, what did a Z06 do? Like a 112, 113?
I think it was a low. It was either high 11 or a low 12.
Okay, and that's a stock car with stock
tires. Stock Z06.
No, like I'm fighting to break into the 14s, and I have a $5,000 carbon fiber wing, and I'm running slicks and race seat. Like I've put a lot of time, money, and investment into my car to be 3 seconds slower. And I just think, yeah, I think the Mustang's gonna have a hard time.
What I'm hoping for is that the release of the ZR1 starts to drive the Z06 prices down because, they're still trading at a premium. It's still tough to find them at MSRP. And I'm hoping now that the ZR1 is coming, the Z06 prices are going to be reasonable, sub 100K. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. So
I'm wondering if 10, 15, 20 years in the future, kind of with the C6 platform, the C6 Z06 really made a name for itself in every aspect. And I'm wondering if way in the future, the C8 Z06 is going to carry that tradition where that is really the more loved track car from the enthusiast, and the ZR1 is just, it's almost too nice that nobody wants to take it to the track. Nobody's racing their C6 ZR1.
Right.
But the C6 Z06 will go down in history as like the best enthusiast affordable track car you can buy probably.
We see those all the time. Did I tell you guys how I quote unquote fumbled my C8 allocation?
No.
It wasn't a Z06. So early on when the C8 first came out, I put in a deposit for one, $10,000. And I had a great relationship with my dealer. I had bought 4 or 5 cars from them at the time. They were like, "We got you." I get the phone call. It's your turn to spec out the car. And at the time, financially, I just couldn't make it work. And so I said, "Hey, can I just get bumped down the line a little?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's no problem. We'll call you in," I think it was like 6 months. Perfect. 6 months into that 6 months, COVID happened. So then we got the chip shortage, delays, everything else. I didn't hear anything for like a year and a half. Then I get the phone call. "It's your turn again." Perfect. I get to the dealership. I was ready to sign some paperwork. I had an idea in mind what I wanted to do. And I get my paperwork, and they were charging me 20 grand over MSRP. And I was like, "What is this?" And they were like, "Oh, well, it's just the market now. Like, it's what it is." And, I don't want to curse. I don't want to get potentially demonetized by YouTube. But no, I just, we agreed to part ways, and I got my deposit back. But at the time, but if I would have taken when it was my original turn, there was no markup. I was just getting it at MSRP.
Yeah.
And that's the reason. And again, ironically, that's the reason we know each other, because if I would have ended up with the C8, we probably would have never met.
He would have been up there with his pinky in his ear, sipping his espressos at Orlando Cars and Coffee.
I would have started playing golf, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what they're for.
So, Hey, new car. I think that's a good segue. Jason, what's going on?
Yeah, so I recently took a trip down to South Florida to pick up a new car. I have been watching the Rivian market for a couple months. I've really missed having an EV as a daily driver. And, looking back, I had a couple of Ford Raptors. I absolutely loved them. I really did. And then I had the Model Y Performance. And for daily, I actually really liked that car. And to be honest, the Rivian just kind of slots in the middle. If the Raptor and a Tesla had a baby, it'd be something like the Rivian. Pretty capable off-road electric truck. So, been watching the market a lot. You can find these things relatively cheap in California because I think Rivian started their deliveries there. But here in Florida, they're still like pretty expensive. So I bid on a couple on Cars and Bids. I didn't win any, whatever. But I found one for sale, South Florida. It's the color I wanted, launch edition. And, I really just wasn't happy with the Golf R for whatever reason, and I did a whole video on this, and I go through a couple reasons, but, ultimately I just was not connecting with that car at all. And so the Rivian popped up for the right price. And, I made a pretty big day trip down there to get it. I was a little concerned, with the charging and everything like that, because I have not used anything other than the Tesla network. So yeah, I drove down there, checked out the truck. Everything was great. I paid a really reasonable price, picked it up in the low 50s, which is, I don't know if you guys follow the Rivian market, but quad motor launch edition, 835 horsepower, I think what it is. And,
Jesus.
Full air suspension, towing capacity, 11,000 pounds. So I have no problem trailering the race car to the track and back. I'm sure that it'll have enough range for that. And even the bed payload capacity is, I think, almost 2,000 pounds or something, like way more than like a normal Dodge 1500 or something like that. And just getting inside the thing. I mean, it's got like real, like kind of a matte black finished real wood in places. Like it's just real classy, real nice, comfortable. Anyways, I'm happy to be back in an EV now. The big question mark is I've decided to take that truck to Italy. Go ahead and Google Rivian in Italy, and you'll see zero of them, actually zero. And so it's a pretty big risk I'm taking. I think, I think there's a small chance I'll get over there, ship the truck, try to turn it on, and it might be bricked. Like, I think that's a legitimate. It might try to hook up to some Wi-Fi network, doesn't find it, doesn't register where it's at. It might be bricked. So I'm going to go down to the Rivian place in Orlando, try to charm them and build some rapport just in case I need to make a phone call to somebody. And, I got to figure out all the weird charging, adapting stuff to try and get the truck to work over there. But I think it'll be good content, and I'm really happy with the truck overall. I'm going to be taking 2 cars to Italy, though, just in case the truck does brick itself.
Yeah. It's like risk being stranded with your EV in Italy for the sake of content. We appreciate your dedication, man.
Yeah, I'm going to go for it. Rivian did open up a factory in Berlin, but they're only servicing like the big Amazon vans that they're building.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure just some Joe Schmo with a camera can trailer his normal truck Rivian out there and maybe they'll fix it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I do know that with some of the newer, cheaper Rivians, I know they have plans to release those in Europe. So I'm hoping that, next year when we get out there, maybe the network is a little bit more evolved. Maybe it's not such a hassle,
Yeah, that's a good call.
Or I get there, I get off the ship, and some rich Italian can't buy the truck, and he offers me $200K for the, you know what I mean? I think that's a possibility too, actually. I really
so
do.
Not to spoil your content, and everybody can watch your video. We'll have a link in the description. But you had mentioned in your video you're definitely taking the Jeep. So are you saying you're taking the Jeep and the Rivian and the S2000 and the 4C are staying here?
No, I'm going to take a sports car. Yeah.
Okay.
So
you're
Andrea
taking
will
3 cars.
Yeah. Well, Andrea will take the Jeep.
Okay.
That's a done deal. So yeah, I'll take the Rivian, and I still got to do a little bit of soul searching to figure out which one of these 2 I want to take. But haven't decided.
So when I watched your video, and I had skimmed it because I saw it and was busy, but I had it going in the background. So watchers, don't skim this podcast, but if you need to skim, go skim Jason's video.
That's right. Just watching 2x speed. That's fine.
Watching 2x. But it sounds like you had to stop a few times, and like how many times did you have to stop, and what was What was that like? Because that's always my biggest fear. What turns me off about EVs is like, what if I go on a road trip but I need to charge it and blah blah blah? I got to wait 3 hours at the charging station. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
do road trips, but what was that like?
So before I left to drive down there, because it was over a 5 hour drive. Before I left, I was mentally prepared that this was going to suck. Okay, I was prepared to potentially have to sleep in the truck to figure something out. And of course, I get down there, and the dealership didn't even have the truck charged up all the way. I get down there, the truck's at like 30%. You know, by the time we test drive it, truck's at like 25%. You know, and obviously a little bit frustrating. Not the dealership's fault necessarily because they had it on the charger since the morning, but they didn't have they just had like a normal, basically wall outlet. So you'd plug the truck in and be like, yeah, the truck will be charged up in 48 hours or something like that. And I was like, well, that doesn't really help me. So I left the dealership with, I don't know, maybe 20-30% charge. And thankfully the truck, it just knew where to go. The charging stations, for the most part, were very easy. They worked. They were relatively fast, and I didn't really have any issues. I mean, it was an incredibly long day, and I was actually, you know, the Electrify America chargers, those networks and stuff. I have no experience with those, and yeah, there was really no issues. I will say the second one I got to, it was in a Walmart parking lot after midnight. And so it's already sketch. It's already really sketch. And, you know, I pull up to the first one, unavailable. And my heart is just like singing. I was just like, uh-oh. I go to the next one. I plug it in. Doesn't do anything. I'm like, here, this is what I've been expecting, you know. Thankfully, I go to the third one, and it charges no problem. I didn't have any issues. But there was a little bit of a close call, I would say. And, yeah, I could definitely feel the range anxiety, you know. But, I mean, that truck has over 310 or 320 miles of range. So 99% of the driving I'm doing, this is not an issue.
Right.
It's just not an issue. And if we really need to go somewhere, you know, we can jump in the Jeep, or if we needed to take the whole family or the dogs or something. But I'm willing to kind of gamble on that risk in the rare occasion once or twice a year I'm taking this Rivian farther than 300 miles.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because
I took my buddy for a ride today from work. He's the guy that's got the Camaro. You guys like that F body track?
Oh yeah.
And I took him for a ride, and he got out. He's like, "Dude, this is the fastest thing I've ever felt in my life." You know, it's
what was that truck MSRP when it was new?
I think if you were to buy that truck quad motor now, I think 95 maybe.
wow.
You know, and so the launch editions, I think, were kind of grandfathered into their release price. So there's a lot of people that have launch editions that paid like the price before Rivian realized they needed to be more expensive. But yeah, if you were to buy that truck now, this truck, I mean, you can't buy the launch edition anymore. But if you wanted a quad motor, the new with like the big battery and stuff, I mean, yeah, you're right at 100,000.
Oh wow. Okay.
Well, congratulations, buddy.
Yeah,
Sounds like
yeah,
you're
congrats.
happy. You've been talking about it for some time, and I think you were waiting for the right deal for
Yeah.
the for the right time.
We must
and
not have been.
just
We must
happened.
not be too good of friends because I had no clue you were even looking at Rivian.
Well, I needed a daily driver that could beat your wife's SUV.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It's my main
exactly.
goal.
Exactly.
He did mention it in episode 1
Oh,
that
did
he
he?
wanted
The Rivian, yeah, maybe.
Oh, I'll have to go back and rewatch that.
It's here. Yeah.
Yeah, you should subscribe and watch.
You skim through it.
All right, yeah. I see.
It busted.
Okay. Hey, I have a lot on my mind, man.
But no, well, so that's a great update on Jason. Courtney, I heard that you had an eventful track day last time out.
Yeah.
Why don't
so
you
now
tell
that-
us what happened?
Yeah. So now that my car's parked at the firm, in its little garage, I figured, hey, this is Saturday afternoon. I didn't have anybody begging me to go at 8 a.m. like Mario and John. So I rolled out there. I left my house at noon, got there at 1 o'clock, pulled it out of the garage, went and got gas, then came back. I was just going to hit some hot laps in the afternoon. Maybe it might rain a little bit, get some wet laps. And everything was going good. I put on my worn down street tires and did a couple mid to low 16s back to back. I'm like, okay. Track's not as hot as I thought it was. I thought the track was going to be hot because, July summer day and all that stuff. But it was super overcast. The track was actually was relatively cool and grippy. So threw my slicks on. I'm like, I might get a 14 today. So I threw my slicks on, and which I'm slow, so I had to jack the car up and do it. And shout out to John, because it was a pain in the ass and took forever. Finally got the slicks on, and then went out for some hard laps. And I'll keep it short and sweet. Came in after, the quickest I ran was actually a 16.1, because I was paced for a 14.5, and I almost spun out at the wall. So that was fun. And of course, this would have been a good time to overlay the video, because it was sketchy as hell, but there was no video because I didn't calibrate my camera on the Garmin first. So this is gonna have to be a story where you disbelieve me. But I come in. John was going down to Orlando because he sold the style bar from his Cobra, because he's getting his roll cages on the way. Okay, so he sold a style bar because can't compete. He went down and installed it for the guy. Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Hey, I'm just gonna come to the track and meet you when I get back." So I'm pulling off the track after that, and I go park by the garages, and he's like, "Man, I smell coolant." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I look down, because at the firm, I know this is bad hygiene, and everybody who tracks their car is going to yell at me in the comments. But at the firm, I don't check my gauges at all. Do you know why I don't check my gauges? Because it's so fast. There's not time. So I never look at my gauges. Jason doesn't either, because he runs out of fuel
right.
on a 1.5 mile track, right?
That's right.
So, so I look down at my heat gauge. It is like slammed in the red, and pop the hood, and it wasn't smoking or anything, which would indicate radiator, but no, there was just like this big wet spot, for lack of a better word, towards the back driver's side of the engine, where coolant had leaked all over. My reservoir was way low. So yeah, I had a big leak out the driver's side back. So in the comments, if you guys have any ideas what is going on, or if you had similar in a 350 or Mustang, let me know. Because we're going back John's actually going out there, because I can't go, but John's going back Sunday to investigate. We just pulled it in the garage and shut the door. So he's probably going to open it up, and there's going to be 10 gallons of coolant on the floor. So
I mean, what's back there? I mean, trans cooler and stuff is back there, right? The diff cooler.
No, like towards like the driver's side, just the rear of the.
Oh, of the engine bay, not of the back of the car.
Engine bay, yes. Sorry.
I see. Okay, yeah. Because
there
are a handful of coolers in the back,
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing that came to mind was head gasket. There's a heater core back there that people have said have lost coolant, but I think it's on the passenger side. And to be honest, we just put it in the garage, and said we'll look at it next week, because it was getting late. We were tired of it, and when I started it back up, it started rough as hell. It didn't start very. So we'll see.
When you had the mishap, did you do a cool down lap and then you came in?
Yeah, I did a cool. I did a 7. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't come in hot and turn it off. No. I definitely did one cool down lap at 70%, but it was still plenty hot when I came in. It didn't cool me down much.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hopefully it's nothing bad. Most likely, again, could have been a rubber hose popped off, or.
Yeah. That's what I hope it is. But we checked a few of the hoses, and they were fine. So hopefully it's a hose underneath. If not, we'll see. Worst case scenario is that there's a crack in the block somewhere, and I got to get a race engine. Oh no. No, I don't want to spend that kind of money.
Yeah. Is the head gasket something John thinks he can do at the firm? Or you got a trailer somewhere? What you can do?
I don't know. Yeah.
I feel like that's a relatively big job, right?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Well, so I've never done one of these, but I've done plenty of head gaskets, and you'll have the people who tell you like, "Oh no, just take the head off, put a new one, torque it down, send." No, I would never do that. You'll gotta take it off, send it to a machine shop, make sure it's straight. And if you had that kind of failure, most likely I would upgrade the head gasket and at least ARP head studs. Now, as far as location, you could do that at the firm. Um, but I mean, again, John's probably better off having it at his place, whatever he works on cars, because that's where all his tools are.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
But again, I hardly doubt that you crack the block, or again, head gasket could happen. How many miles? Like 20,000, 15,000?
20,000, but I mean, it's been pretty exclusively tracked for a year and a half. I mean, we started with 18,000 miles a year and a half ago, and I put 2,000 like miles on the track.
All track miles.
Yeah, so that's a lot of track miles. And
so did you almost hit the wall because you were kind of dripping some fluid and maybe your tires got a little wet?
Maybe, yeah. That could. I thought that too. But really what I think it is I tried the Hoosier A7s. That's what I'm running now because they're faster than the R7s, right? But those A7s, I read tons of reviews on them, and all the guys are like, this is a great qualifying tire, this is a great autocross tire, this is a great blah blah blah. You'd have the rare guy that's like, yeah, I run this. I saw one post. This guy's like, I run this on a 2,800-pound Corvette in the Texas summer for a 30-minute race, and you get your like one time the first time I ran them, I ran like a 15.3 at the firm. That was my first lap out. I like half the warm up lap, and the second lap was was the fastest one of the day. Most other tires were like, we're getting into it like on the third and the fourth lap is when we're finally getting hot enough. But no, these are hot and they turn on like that. Also, I think you get about 7 or 8 heat cycles out of them in total, and they're done. So when I was on pace for that fast lap, I was just, this is where shout out to the Garmin. Do hashtag Garmin, Mario. I think that's where we get our views from. What it was telling me, it's like, hey, I ran like a 16.4, and then it was a 16.2, I think. I'll have to go look. I'm not trying to embezzle the story here, embellish the story. 16.2, and then first sector I was down like half a second. By second sector I was down like 1.1. Okay, and I'm like, if I can nail this wall, I'm at a 14.999, right? So I don't know if I was trying to be a little more aggressive or what, but I think I was on my fourth lap with those A7s, and they were just getting slimy.
So instead of you're watching your coolant temperature, you're just watching your lap timer up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, that's always been my, and it happens a lot in sim racing too. I used to keep my relative on and my laps on to be like, oh, how am I doing my next lap? And I found myself paying more attention to whether I was up or down on a lap. So and once I turned that off, I was quicker, not necessarily because, it's just more important to focus on the things that matter. But
right.
I too have been guilty of like, I'm doing a lap and you peek at the timer and you're like, oh, I'm green. And, or if you're in the red, then you try to overdrive to try to make up the time. That's not good. But yeah, it's part of the course to learn in this great hobby that we spend all our money on. But I doubt it'll be anything bad. Hopefully it's nothing. Hopefully it's just, again, little hose or something popped off.
Yeah, hope so.
Because again, in retrospect, I bought Jason's car. It had 7,000 miles roughly, and I just hit 14,000 last week. And while I do drive on the street, mine has mostly been driving on the street to drive to the track.
Yeah.
And I'm farther from the firm than you are, and this car has done Daytona, Sebring, the firm a handful of times, and Homestead. So I've put quite a bit of miles on the car.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think I've put the stress on the car that you have, because again, you're stripped down and you're generating all this downforce and stuff, and I didn't hit a deer. So, um,
All sorts of bad luck, man.
yeah, these motors are strong. Like I know that they have a bit of bad rep with the oil consumption and stuff, but
Yeah.
outside of that, I highly doubt that you broke
I
something.
think we could do a whole video on oil consumption too, because everything I still read is oil consumption in GT350s. Like, and I don't know, it's such a low percentage. And once you get past a certain 30,000 whatever miles, it would do it in that time frame. So I could go on and on about this. Like this is the best. Voodoo's the best motor that Ford has put out.
Well, out of the three of us, I mean, we're at a 33% failure rate for GT350 motors, which isn't too good, Courtney. You know, my first GT350 lost a motor for no reason.
I didn't know you had one before this one.
Yeah, had a Grabber Blue car. Yep, and Ford picked it up under warranty, put a new motor in it. Yeah, yeah. I was just driving the car, started knocking. I mean, you know, but I like the car so much.
I call back my statement. I call back. Let's get some facts in here. But
it's on the channel. It's on the channel. You can.
So it's crazy because when I first met Jason, the first question he asked me was, "Did they offer you a warranty?" And I was like, "Yeah." The first words were "smart man." Like, yeah. So, but I didn't know you had another one. But this one, so I did 3 track days since my last oil change, and roughly 2,000 miles. I'm sorry, roughly 1,000 miles, and it lost about a quart, which, according to the owner's manual, that's within spec. If you do a quart about 1,000 miles, and if you're driving, you know, aggressively in 98-degree heat, you're gonna burn some. So I think this engine is in good shape. The only little update I have for me, as far as I'm going to be doing a little bit of driving at Daytona this weekend.
Oh yeah, that is this weekend.
Yeah. As far as what I'm shooting for lap time wise, last time I was at Daytona, and here comes the jokes about the Mario Book of Excuses. The last time I was at Daytona, I did a 221. It was a terrible lap time. My optimal was either a 218 or 219, but in the oval, I kept backing off. Like I would go through the infield. I loved the infield. It was great. And after the bus stop, I would just back off because it literally felt like the car was going to fall off the oval. And I've driven Daytona before in a different car with good tires, and that's not a normal feeling. So this time I'm going with new tires, so that shouldn't be an excuse. Well, it'll be the 3rd cycle of these tires, but there's still plenty of life in them. And I'm shooting for anything under 210. I'll be incredibly happy. I think the car can do it. From everything that I looked up online, guys are doing between 206 and 208 in January. So if I can be in the 208s, 210s in the middle of August or early August, they should be pretty respectable in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, from the sound of it, those tires will be a big help because I'm pretty. Yeah, that could be a topic for another day too. We got to keep people eager to hear more content. But yeah, those tires sound like they're treating you pretty well.
I am in love with this Pirellis. To the point that I keep checking Tire Rack just to make sure that I don't see like low stock or going, because if they go out of stock or they're gonna go out of stock, I'll just buy another set just to keep, because they're such a good tire. Like even on the street, the difference between how the Cup 2s feel and how the Pirellis feel is crazy. Which also, by the way, from what I read, and I could be wrong, the ZR1 will have Cup 2s. I think it's the Cup 2R or maybe regular Cup 2s.
What's the Pirelli model you're running?
Pirelli P0 Trofeo RS. Yeah, so to my knowledge, it was developed for Porsche for the GT3 RS. And then they homologated the tire and then they opened it up to us peasants that can't afford a GT3 RS. So yeah, it's a phenomenal tire.
We could if we combined all our money.
Yeah. No, it's funny. We talk about like how we can't afford a GT3 RS, and we're like, yeah, would you take the GTD over this? Both these $300,000 cars, and
yeah.
I mean, we have $100,000 cars almost.
Yeah.
Jason,
I never asked you this. Were you the first owner of my car?
No, but I do know the previous owner.
Okay. How did he treat it? Like, did he track it as well?
Nope. No, he's
Okay.
a older gentleman with a stable full of high end Mustangs.
Cool.
Yeah. He did not want to sell it. He traded it in for a GT500, but kind of regretted it.
What are you talking about? I'm on Tire Rack. It says in 315s they have one in stock. Do you get 305s?
For the rear, I did 315s. For the fronts, I did 305.
Oh. Oh yeah, because you're not running a square set yet.
Right.
Dude, I don't know. I'm seeing 3 in stock.
So, you know what I'm gonna do right when we're done.
Not if I get them first. No, I think I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try those two as kind of my street tire.
Yeah.
Because I mean the supercar 3Rs are good, but you're getting way more wear out of these than I think pretty much anybody gets out of the supercars. So.
I mean, you saw me go to the track back-to-back weekends and be within a tenth of my lap time
Yeah, that's pretty good.
in 100-degree weather. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
No, sounds like they're wearing pretty well, for sure.
Yeah. But also remember, and this is not a... I'm not trying to call myself the tire whisperer, but I'm pretty gentle on tires.
Yeah.
I make sure I bring them up to temperature. I don't overdrive them when they're cold. And that helps. And also, anybody who's buying a track tire... If you get them from Tire Rack or from somewhere else, if they offer the heat cycle option, do it. Pay the $20 to $25 per tire. It'll extend the life of your tires, and you'll get at least 1 or 2 more heat cycles out of them.
Yep, absolutely.
That was the big... So before, I would try to be cheap and not heat cycle the tires. But then if you think about it, if you don't have a track near you, or if you don't have the ability to put them through a proper heat cycle... Imagine paying a track day, which for us at the firm, before we had the membership, it was roughly $250.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more money than the heat cycle. And you can't even make a full track day out of them because you're supposed to, the proper heat cycle to a tire is to go put them through a pace, 70, 80%, and then park the car and let the tires heat overnight, cool overnight. And then after that, they're properly heat cycled.
Mm-hmm.
So that costs you $250. Paying Tire Rack to do it costs you $80 or $100. So it's
that's a good point.
And then you're not wearing out your brakes. You're not spending money on fuel. So it's worth it. Anybody out there, if you're thinking about tires, get them heat cycle. Yeah. Don't be cheap.
Every time I buy track tires from Tire Rack, I get them heat cycled.
Shout out to Tire Rack. I really like how they've every time I buy something. One time, the first set of Cup 2s for the Mustang, something went wrong. They shipped me the tires. They got lost in transit. I got the fronts, the rear were lost. They were like, hey, don't worry. They overnighted me a set, but then they didn't hit cycle them. And then the originals showed up, and they just said, don't worry, we'll send you a tracking slip. And I was able to ship the non-heat cycle back, but they stepped up right away because I told them, I'm trying to do this track day. I have the guys scheduled to come down the tires. He's like, don't you worry, we'll have them there for you. And they did. So shout out to Tire Rack.
That's nice. Yeah.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
Yeah, not yet. Can we get a code?
They do have an affiliate program.
Okay, well, so let's see what we can do. Let's
yeah
tag him in this, Mario.
Yeah, sure will. Well, guys, is there anything else we want to cover in episode 3 before we wrap?
No, I think if we go any longer, people are going to fall asleep. So if they haven't already. If you're here,
I definitely want to open up the comment section for Q&A stuff. So if anyone out there has got any questions that you want to hear the three of us uneducated amateur drivers talk about, I think we would love to entertain some questions.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun because as you can tell, we know enough to be dangerous, but not near enough. So, and also if we're talking total shit up here and have no clue what we're talking about, call us out. I want to hear that too.
Yep. And so what we'll do is everybody leave your comments down below, and in episode 4, we will answer all your questions.
Both of them. All right.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you for being part of episode 4, and I'll catch you next time.
Episode 3. We're out.
Episode 3. See you in episode 4.